Few lines in comic book history capture the moral backbone of a hero like Captain America's "No, you move." It's a quote that defines who Steve Rogers is, a man who stands unwaveringly by his beliefs, even when the entire world tells him he's wrong. But when the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, brought this legendary speech to life in Captain America: Civil War, 2016, it made a bold creative choice. It gave those words not to Steve Rogers, but to Peggy Carter, through her niece, Sharon. What might have seemed like a subtle change completely transformed the meaning of the quote. The MCU's version of "You Move" softens the edges of Steve's idealism, trading patriotic rigidity for empathy and moral balance. It's one of those rare cases where adaptation doesn't just pay homage to its source, it refines it. From comic book conviction to cinematic compassion. In the comics, Captain America delivers his "No, you move" speech in the amazing Spider-Man number 537 during Marvel's Civil War event. The world is divided after a catastrophic superhero battle kills hundreds of civilians, and the government introduces the Superhuman Registration Act, forcing all heroes to reveal their identities and work under government supervision. Peter Parker, manipulated by Tony Stark and under pressure from the public, initially supports the act. But when the truth about its authoritarian consequences becomes clear, he turns to Captain America for guidance. That's when Steve delivers his famous monologue, a call to stand for truth even when the world demands conformity. Doesn't matter what the press says. Doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say. When the whole world tells you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, "No, you move." It's a moment that defines Captain America as the ultimate symbol of moral courage, the one man who won't bend, even under impossible odds. But it's also a product of its time, idealistic, nationalistic, and unyielding. The MCU's rewrite, Peggy Carter's human touch. In Captain America: Civil War, the quote returns in an entirely new light. At Peggy Carter's funeral, Sharon Carter recalls her aunt's advice, words that move Steve Rogers to defy the Sokovia Accords and protect his best friend, Bucky Barnes. Sharon's version reads, "Compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right. Even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye, and say, 'No, you move.'" It's nearly identical to the comic version, but the context changes everything. The words now come from a woman who fought through systemic barriers and gender prejudice. Instead of a national or political statement, it becomes a moral and human one, a reflection of compassion and resilience rather than defiance alone. By turning Captain America's rigid moral absolutism into Peggy Carter's nuanced wisdom, the MCU modernizes the speech. It shifts from the patriotic idealism of a soldier to the grounded resolve of a humanitarian. The inclusion of "compromise where you can" reframes the entire philosophy. It acknowledges the importance of dialogue, empathy, and restraint before standing firm. Why the change matters. The MCU's reinterpretation doesn't just reassign authorship, it redefines how we understand heroism. In the comics, Steve's version is uncompromising, a rallying cry for personal conviction and defiance against systemic corruption. But in the MCU, Peggy's version understands that moral strength doesn't mean rejecting compromise altogether. It means knowing when to stand your ground. This change also adds emotional depth to Steve's arc. At that point in Civil War, Steve Rogers is torn between his duty to the world and his loyalty to his oldest friend. Hearing Peggy's philosophy through Sharon gives him clarity, not just as a soldier, but as a person. It reminds him that standing firm isn't about pride or patriotism, but about empathy and integrity. By giving those words to Peggy, the MCU also gives them to every underrepresented voice that had to fight to be heard. Peggy's struggles in a male-dominated world mirror Steve's struggles in a morally divided one. Her wisdom carries a universal weight that transcends national borders, making it resonate with global audiences rather than just American ideals. From idealism to humanity. Ultimately, both speeches embody the same core belief, standing by one's principles when it matters most. But where the comics Captain America speaks as a symbol of American idealism, the MCU's Peggy Carter speaks as a symbol of universal human courage. Steve Rogers may have once told the world to move, but in Civil War, it's Peggy's words that move him. Her advice, to balance compromise with conviction, doesn't weaken the message. It strengthens it, grounding it in empathy and realism. The MCU took one of Captain America's most iconic lines and turned it from a patriotic declaration into a timeless statement about integrity, resilience, and the moral strength to do what's right, even when standing alone.